Welcome to The Economy magazine at i24 News, where we look at the most important stories in global business and innovation. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Coming up today, an Iran deal is here, and oil markets feel the pressure. Also, Italian authorities make a sweeping anti-mafia operation. Let's start now with the headlines. After painstaking negotiations, the Iran nuclear deal is here. As sanctions are eased, analysts say Tehran could add 200,000 barrels per day in the short term. In the long term, Iran has the potential to flood the oil markets. The country holds the fourth largest oil reserves in the world, also sitting on some 20 to 40 million barrels in storage onshore. Still, there would be some delay before Iran could actually export crude, as sanctions first have to be formally lifted, and Iran's deteriorating infrastructure requires refurbishment. Still, crude prices already took the plunge on Tuesday, as a flood of supply is expected to enter the market sometime in the future. For an update on oil markets, we are joined on the phone by Lior Shmueli, economic consultant to the Israeli Institute for Energy and Environment. Thank you very much for being with us today. Where do you see oil prices to move now over the short and long term?
Well, the oil supply is still higher than the international demand. And during the last month, we saw a decrease in oil prices from $64 to $57 per barrel. That reduction was also affected by the investor expectation signing an agreement with Iran. In the short term, we expect that as a result of the international agreement with Iran, the oil price will continue to go down, as the removal of the sanctions will enable them to accelerate the export of oil and increase supply even further. However, for the long run, we expect the oil price to decrease, but it is actually a question of geopolitical aspect, as we must wait and see on how does Saudi Arabia will respond to the market. Saudi Arabia can reduce oil production after the agreement with Iran, and therefore to increase oil prices. And they will do that according to their interest in the geopolitical situation in the Middle East after the agreement.
Well, now moving on to the rest of our coverage. After Eurozone leaders reached a deal on Greece, the Greek Prime Minister faces a hard sell at home. The new bailout agreement is much tougher than the one he and Greek voters overwhelmingly rejected just over a week ago. Alexis Tsipras himself came into office on a staunch anti-austerity platform. Now he must push even harsher measures of the very moves he has opposed for months. In exchange for up to 86 billion euros in loans, Greece will have to cut pensions and hike sales taxes. And yet another surprising twist of fate, Tsipras may even have to recruit support from political opponents to get this new package approved by Wednesday's deadline. Well, the U.S. budget deficit remains near its lowest level in 7 years last month. The U.S. Treasury Department reported a $52 billion surplus in June. It's a month in which the government has typically generated a surplus, largely with the help of corporate and individual tax dollars. This month, a rosier economic outlook also boosted revenues. The surplus last month brought the budget deficit for the last year to $431 billion, down nearly 20% from the previous year, marking the second lowest 12-month deficit since August 2008. And Chinese chipmaker Tsinghua is said to be planning a $23 billion bid for Idaho-based Micron technology. If the deal goes through, it would be the biggest effort Chinese takeover of the U.S. firm. Since the start of this year, Micron shares have performed poorly, down almost 50%. Meanwhile, Tsinghua, the state-owned chip design company, has already been on the hunt in the U.S. In May, the Beijing firm bought a $2.3 billion majority stake in HP's Chinese server and storage unit. Well, the Iran deal is here, and with the official opening of diplomatic ties also comes the expected arrival of oil. Lots of it.
I have just signed the roadmap between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the IAEA for the clarification of past and present outstanding issues regarding Iran's nuclear program.
The long-awaited Iranian nuclear deal is finally here. And after years of harsh sanctions, the Islamic Republic was able to reach an agreement following negotiations with 6 world powers. Under the terms of the deal, Iran will be allowed to maintain a limited nuclear program in which the UN will monitor military installations.
This is a significant step forward towards clarifying outstanding issues regarding Iran's nuclear program.
The effects of this deal will change the game for oil markets. Iran, a member of OPEC, exported nearly 3 million barrels per day before sanctions were imposed. And for the country to resume being a lead exporter, its outdated oil infrastructure will need to be modernized, which will likely increase demand for steel and cement imports. As local GDP and disposable incomes increase, Iran will likely step up imports of agricultural products such as corn, wheat, and rice. But the deal is not set in stone. If the UN finds that Iran violates the terms, sanctions could be restored within 65 days.
In one of the biggest operations in years, Italian authorities seized some 1.6 billion euros from a Sicilian family it says used the local mafia to amass a huge wealth. Shelby Weiner has the details.
1.6 billion euros. That's the value of the property confiscated by Italian authorities last week. It's one of the biggest seizures ever made in the country. The businesses, property, and bank accounts taken all belong to the Virga family, who are suspected of being involved in the mafia.
A special agency has been created by the state to manage all of these confiscated goods. At the moment, it manages 12,000 properties and 3,000 businesses. To handle all of that, the agency only employs 50 people, but it needs at least 500.
Over the last 6 years, the Italian justice system has confiscated nearly 13,000 hectares of land, and the state now controls 2 billion euros worth of bank deposits and other assets. But a downside comes with the property management, which is more complicated than the seizure itself, mainly because of complex administrative procedures and the reluctancy of banks to work with the confiscated companies. However, the capital could help the country revive its economy. In 2014, the GDP dropped for the third consecutive year.
I'm not in favor of selling the businesses which have been seized from the mafia. The confiscated businesses should remain part of the state, and they should be used as a symbol of the success against the mafia.
The National Agency for the Confiscated Property has recently transformed the confiscated villa of one mafia boss into a museum. Seized trucks are offered to firefighters, and luxury vehicles are donated to the Red Cross.
2015 is turning out to be a strong year for investments in Israeli startups. So far, Israeli VC has raised some $855 million in new funds in the first 6 months. Now for insight on the startup landscape as a whole, we were joined in studio by one of the sector's players. On set, we have Ron Wagner, general partner of Gemini Israel Ventures. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, you do look at a lot of startups, but what really stands out to you? Who do you think are the winners? What are the characteristics you look for?
Well, I personally look for startups that are new category definers, people who view a change in the market, can predict the impact it will have on the industry, and leverage that opportunity to start a new venture to capture that opportunity. A good example could be a company called Weka that we invested in. It's a core technology storage company. With SSD coming into the storage market, there's a big disruption of how people want to store data, their expectations of performance and capacity, and we think that the guys at Weka have got a great product to leverage that new revolution around SSD to provide a better storage to enterprises.
So is it beyond the product? Do they offer anything else on the table in terms of vision that really stood out to you?
So product, technology, the team, the potential market, those are all different factors that we take into consideration when making an investment decision. We look at companies in different industries and different verticals. At Gemini, we've made investments in semiconductor companies and in application companies. So those are different markets, different ways to attack those markets, different technologies, different founders, and all of those things are things that we take into consideration when we make a decision.
When these startups actually look to make a deal, are there other factors that they should consider aside from valuation?
So I think that one very common mistake among founders of companies is to look at valuation as the most important thing when they go to raise money. I think the most important factor is the ability of the new partner, the new venture capital partner, the new angel, the new whoever it is that's going to invest in your company, how they're going to work with you and how they're going to bring you value in the long run. Whether it's introductions, whether it's just sitting with you, being your soundboard, help you make better decisions. Are they going to be patient when things are not going as well as you would hope them to be?
This almost sounds like dating.
It's almost like getting married.
So you're looking at more than just what's in the bank account, but also the characteristics of the person, what they bring to the table. And just lastly, do you have any other advice, burning advice for Israeli entrepreneurs specifically?
I think Israeli entrepreneurs have a great ecosystem around them. They have many investors. They have all the service providers around them. They have access also to global corporations. I think with Startup Nation, the book, and all the positive press about the local ecosystem, their starting point, and they have to appreciate it, is a much better starting point than many other people all around the world. Israel is second to the Silicon Valley only in terms of startup ecosystem, and they need to take advantage of that. They need to date, as you mentioned before. They need to meet a lot of people. You never know when someone can help you get to someone else. But I think, at least from my experience in the last maybe 4 or 5 years of doing this, focus on creating a great product. At least things that I've seen. You invest in creating the best product, and you bring it to the users, delight your first users, and I think things will flow from there.
All right, well, focus on the core of your business. Thank you very much, Eran Wagner. Do appreciate your insight.
Thank you for having me.
For more insight on the world of startups, we are joined on set by Noah Aron, economic correspondent for Israeli Channel 2. Thanks for joining us today. So what did you bring for us?
Okay, so we spent about 8 hours per day sitting, just like you and I just now. The problem is that most of the time when we sit, we kind of slouch and we sit like this, and it's very unhealthy for your back, and it doesn't look good, let's be honest. So this is Upright. It's actually, it was produced by an Israeli startup called Upright, and this little thing actually goes on your back, and what it does is that it sits on your back, and whenever you slouch, it will vibrate and tell you to, just sit upright. It's very, very simple, and it actually should help you even if you just wear it for about 15 minutes per day. So the company recommends to wear this for 15 minutes to an hour every day, and in 30 days, this is what they say, you should be able to just sit upright and correct the way that you sit. These guys actually started from a crowdfunding campaign. They raised $150,000, and now they're after their seed with $500,000. Wow. So they're on the right path. They're already communicating with big companies like BMW and Target. Big companies actually really, really need this. They have a lot of employees, and this is a fun thing to give them to use. They do have some competition. It's another product called Lumolift. It's somewhat similar, except that company doesn't really encourage you to wear it for only 15 minutes per day. They encourage you to wear their device for the entire day.
And the thing that's really interesting about that one, they're actually using a magnet, right?
Yes, so it's different. It sits right here, like on the dash of your shirt or your jacket, and it works differently. This one actually sits on your back, and no one can see it. It goes right straight on your body, on your back, just like that. And it's very small. I guess you wouldn't really feel it, even if you wear it all day long. I guess you can actually use it, and it should be able to fix the way that you sit, and it's very, very healthy for you.
Have you used it yourself?
Not yet. I should, though.
What else do you have for us next?
Okay, so the second one, do you watch sports?
I admit I don't.
Yeah, I don't watch a lot of sports too. I have to admit that. But a lot of people do watch sports, and a lot of people watch games. And usually when you watch a game, even when I watch a game, the only thing you want to know is what's going to happen in the end, right? So it's not really that much fun. You can't really play with it.
Well, it depends who you ask. A lot of those sports fans like the whole show.
Yeah, you can watch the whole show, but if you want to, I don't know, if you want to guess, if you want to, place a bet with your friends and say who's going to win, you basically focus on who's going to win, and this is it. And B7Win is trying to change that. They've created a product called Fast Win. It's a game that's used on your mobile phone. It's a second screen. What it does is that you can watch the game through your phone with that second screen, and you can play a minute-by-minute guessing game. So you can guess what's going to happen every minute. So if you sign up, if you download the app, if you download the game, you can actually have a second screen, watch whatever game you want. They have about 5,000 games already there that you can watch live with your phone. And you can play with other players and guess minute by minute what's going to happen next. Is it going to be a goal? Is it going to be a foul? And then you can earn coins. It's like a game. You can earn coins, and then eventually what they're planning on is they're planning that people who are actually going to buy these coins, and this is where the business comes from, and of course advertising as well. So this is how these guys make money.
Thank you very much for your insight. We do appreciate it here, as always. That wraps up our show today. Do stay tuned tomorrow for all the latest in global economic news. I'm Natalie Ehrlich. Thank you for watching. Bye.